Miss Elizabeth, or should I say Lisa Casarez?
Lisa Casarez, Austin.
Austin.
Yes.
Beautiful wedding. Someone just got married after quite a while, huh?
We were friends for 27 years and fell in love and decided to get married on June 21st in Kona, Hawaii.
I saw the pictures.
Yeah,
beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, I think we've got some pictures that we can share here. Yeah, what a beautiful story. I know that you shared a little bit with me, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
Thank
Lisa,
you.
you are the founder and CEO of Angels of Grace Foster Family Agency.
I am.
Right? And tell me how you arrived at becoming the CEO for this and doing so much more for our community.
Well, thank you. You know, it's a journey. Life is a journey, and I am a person of faith, and so I believe sometimes when we go through dark times, and as I refer to my life, I'm guided by the Bible. So the Bible says, what the enemy means for bad, God can turn around for good. Yes. And in my life, I've seen it over and over again. And you know, we're on this journey, and sometimes we hit bumps in the road, and we get to the other side, and then we keep going, and then there's another bump. And I think it's just a journey of life, and it's a journey of faith and of joy and hope, and it's all the things that we need so we can become human beings that can have empathy for other people. And as they get to the place in dark times, or they hit the bumps in the road, then you can be there to encourage them, get them over that, you know, bump in the road, and then together we can continue on this life journey. So everything's about, in my opinion, relationships, and not forgetting the places that you've come out of, so that you don't forget that, you know, God doesn't want to waste that hurt in your life as well.
Yes. So where did this all start? Because I know it wasn't all uphill, you know. Yeah. Well, actually, it was uphill, but once you decided for it, right? And that takes a lot of courage to do.
Well, thank you.
So,
courage is important,
but
and faith and humans. I mean, I think it's a journey that we come on to, but a lot of times we feel like we have to stay stuck. So many of us have been groomed to be a certain kind of way, and in that grooming process, if we don't find a different journey, we'll stay stuck. And it's interesting because I, as a social worker, have been able to share my story and my adventure and my journey with other women and men as well. And I find that it's important that we embrace each other and we share the good times and the bad times, but most importantly, that we find a different opportunity and a different journey, a different road that we can go on. Because if you only know a certain road, then that's the road that you follow. And sometimes we have to be trailblazers. And we have to create those roads so that other people will follow. In my own personal journey, I was raised in a religion that was very structured. And so, you know, my husband was chosen for me when I was very young, 12 years old. I knew I was going to get married to this person. So at 18, I married. And at that point, he was 22, I think, 22 years old. So he was also in a religion that was very structured, and there wasn't a lot of freedom. So as soon as he married me, boy, I'll tell you, that gate was like the little puppy, that the gate was open and he went crazy with it.
Oh, wow.
And I stayed in the background, you know, thinking things were going to get better. And it ended up going into a dark place of a lot of domestic violence, a lot of control. And in the way that I was raised, how do you fix that? Well, you have children, because the children will make it. He's going to become
get married, have children,
be more committed to the family. And in my experience, all it did was invite children into the chaos. So, you know, my children unfortunately ended up in that dark place with me. And when the violence would occur, you know, it's a cycle of domestic violence. You're walking on eggshells, and then there's an explosion, and everything goes crazy. And then you have the honeymoon period where I'm sorry, it will never happen again. And people stay stuck in that circle. And so that was my life. And when you're in those places of darkness and you have a mentor who's right there with you, who will encourage you to stay in that place because things are going to get better. There was a woman across the street from me, and she was an older woman. So the police was either at her house or my house. One of us had, you know, unfortunately the people would come out, call the police would come out. And back in those days, this was like in the 80s, it was always one police officer. So he was either at her house or my house, and he would just look at me and, you know, take pictures of all the damage and tell me, you know, you got it really, this is not okay. But what is he going to do?
Yeah.
Just be there to encourage, right?
Yeah.
And so this woman one day, she was the one that was called because of her abuse. And I went out. He came to my door, and I went out, and she was murdered by her husband. So that was kind of my aha moment. Like, I knew abuse was in my life, but I didn't think it could lead to death. And she had a lot of children, so seeing her body come out and all the children crying and the drama, he being arrested, it was a really pivotal moment in my life, because it was real.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that's what it took for me to say, this is not what I want. I don't want to be dead. I had then 2 children. I had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. And so he gave me a card from the Marjorie Mason Center, which is our, women's shelter here in Fresno. And never thought I was going to use that card, because, it happens to everybody else, but not to us. Well, it was in my face now. Death was in my face, and that was could be very well an option in my life. And so the next day, I ended up in that same dark place. He came home late. He wanted a chicken sandwich, and I was a little reluctant, and there I went across the kitchen floor, and it's interesting. I tell people in the places of sharing life with our children, we bring energy, and we don't even have to really say anything. It's like everybody, like we had huddled and said, okay, we're not going to take this anymore. Let's make a plan. Because in previous occasions, my 2-year-old and my 4-year-old would go under the bed. They would hide, and when everything was over, they'd come out. The storm was over, and we acted like nothing happened. Well, this particular time, my oldest son, who was 4, took the 2-year-old out of the crib and put her in my little Chevy Chevette and grabbed my purse and screamed,
They were
"Mommy,
ready.
Mommy,
Huh?
let's go." And I grabbed
Yeah.
what I could, which was, I think, just like a blanket or something, ran in the car and hit reverse and almost killed him. So I could have ended up in the women's prison, because back then women were looked at as they were basically owned by their husbands, right? Things have changed since then.
I don't know.
And I ended up in the middle of Fresno, with my children and T-shirts, and I pulled out that card. I actually pulled over and started to pray and asked God to help me, because I said, if you're real, I need you to be my husband, my friend, my provider. And it's interesting. I remembered that card, and I looked up, and I was parked in an area where there was a payphone, and I called the number. It was almost on empty. And in calling the number, they came out and they got me, and they took me into the shelter. Wow. And that was, the beginning of a lot of, that was the journey that God put me on. And then I found out, it was so funny, because I was feeling very nauseous, very sick. I thought it was all of the, feeling stressful and everything. So they took me to, it was back then the Old Valley Medical Center. And I walked in, and actually I went in by ambulance. And so I'm waiting there in the gurney, and there was a nurse that was so amazing. She was phenomenal. And she was like a little butterfly. She would come in, and she would, look at me, take my vitals, and said, okay, you're important, but all these people are coming in by ambulance, and I got to help them. And then when I come back, I'll take care of you. So she was running around and come back and make sure I was okay. And one of the times that she came up to me, she grabbed my she went like this to check my tonsils, and I looked at her and I grabbed her hand. I said, can you say a prayer for me? And she said the cutest, beautiful prayer. And she said, you're going to be okay. She said, this is a little bump in the road, but we're going to get to the other side. And I looked at her, and she had the most beautiful blue eyes. They were like a ocean blue. And I looked in her eyes, and she came so close to me. It was almost like they say that your eyes are the windows to your soul.
Yes.
Her soul was so pure, and it was so beautiful that she spoke life into me. And it was like we had this magical moment. And then she left, and I never saw her again. But that was enough to get me to a place where I knew that I was somebody. This woman who was out there rescuing all these people felt like I was somebody. I was, and this was not something that should be happening in my life. And I took it with me, and I ran with it. And I found out that day I was pregnant with my 3rd child. So it was like, oh no. And then I went back to the Marjorie Mason Center. A couple of my friends from high school went to visit me, they were so cute. They brought me gifts, gifts and just try to encourage me. And one of the gifts that they brought was a cup, and it said on the outside of the cup, "It could be worse." And then you took the chocolates out, because chocolates always make everything better. And on the inside it said, "You could be pregnant." So I found out that day I was pregnant. I was like, I just looked at them. I said, "I'm pregnant." And they started, "Oh my God, you should have got her the cup." And I knew it was bad, but you know what? They were my friends, and they did it because they loved me, and I just kept reaching for love, reaching for hope. And the Marjorie Mason Center, being the nonprofit that it was my anchor, because they gave me the hope. They gave me a place to have refuge. And it was during that time that, along with other women that looked just like me, some were older, some were younger, and we were all just trying to survive from this domestic violence. There was actually a woman there that was a doctor. Can you believe that?
Oh, yes. I
and I'm like, okay, here I am, barely have a high school degree, and she's a doctor, and she's going through this just like I am. So we bonded, and we were all sitting there, all the women, we were in a circle, and there was a commercial that came out, and it said, "Are you lost? Are you confused? Do you not know where you're going?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm lost. I'm confused." And it was a commercial for Fresno City College. And it said, "We're taking registrations for Fresno City College." And it was a number that was like a song. It was 442-4600. So that whole morning it was playing in my head, 442-4600. I need to call them. I need to do something. I don't want to be on welfare. I don't want to have to depend on the government. I need to do something for my life. And so I made the call, and it was such a beautiful connection, because I ended up talking to a counselor named Mr. Perkins. And Mr. Perkins, I said, "I'm at the Marjorie Mason Center, and I need to get an education." And he's like, "Just come on down. We'll figure it out when you get here." So I went, and it was a beautiful journey. Mr. Perkins let me come into his classroom. My kids were not, I was not being supported by my family. So basically nobody was allowed to help me with my children. So I took them with me.
Because of your the
culture and the religion and everything, right? They wanted me to go back to my husband. So I took the kids to school with me, and I sat them in the corner, and I stayed in like 4 classes that he had, or 3 or 4 classes, and one of them was study skills, assertive behavior, job seeking, and another class. And so I stayed in his class the whole time, and he let me bring my kids. And so the kids would be there, and I'd bring their crayons and everything. And then if they got a little bit angsty, I told them, "If you let me graduate, I'll take you to Disneyland." So as soon as they got a little antsy, I would say, "Disneyland," and they'd get, kind of. So it was, and then the students thought it was so cool that I had these kids. They started seeing my belly get bigger, because I started showing, and the students started helping me with my kids. It had a sign-out sheet, and I would, one would take one, the other one, and all the day the kids had all this attention from all these students. I was really supported very well. And then we found out there was childcare on campus, which we didn't know about.
Wow.
So we were able to get them into the campus, and I had the baby by then, and it was amazing. They would all give me a quarter at the end of the week to buy Pampers, because I was using, the cloth diapers, which were very expensive, and so they would help me with that. And it was a journey that only God could have taken me through. I really feel like it was part of the journey that I needed to be on, so that I could help other people. In that process, I was able to be excited about sharing my journey as far as helping other women. So one of the professors, one of the counselors, I should say, Pauline Fuller, she said, "You should go into social work." And I said, "Oh no, but I want to become a dental hygienist." And she said, "Oh no, you need to go and help other women," because I started doing restraining orders and really getting empowered to help other women. And I said, "Well, how long is that going to take?" And she says, "It won't take that long." It took me 15 years to get my master's. I just kept going one day at a time, and before you knew it, I made it. I got my master's, and now I'm running this beautiful agency for foster children. I really felt I was going to work with the moms. I always thought I was going to come and empower women, of domestic violence, and for some reason, God kept sending me to the foster children. But I have a real respect for the fact that God knows what He's doing, and sometimes we don't know. And so when I came out in the middle of my dark place, I didn't have any shoes on. I was wearing a robe. I had 50 cents in my pocket, so I was in a really bad place. And when I got to the Marjorie Mason Center, they put shoes on my feet. They, you know, made me feel like I was human, took care of the outside so that I could start to take care of the inside. And it was in that moment, kind of the Maslow hierarchy, you know, that you start to feel like, oh, wait, I'm a human and I have value and worth. And that's what I do for my foster children now. When I get them, a lot of them are coming full of head lice. Their diapers haven't been changed. They haven't had a warm bottle. You know, they're a lot of neglect. That's the number one thing. 87% of the kids are totally neglected when they come in. And so I'm able to take care of them.
Wow.
I love on them. And I tell them, like the nurse told me, you know, you're valuable. You're worthy. You're beautiful. This isn't your fault. We're going to get through the other, you know, it's a little bump in the road. We're going to get to the other side.
You see them. You
and
see them.
It works.
It
works. They end up feeling that way. And then in the process, I get to work with the families. So then I get to work with the moms and I get to share my story. And they become better people because they think, well, if God did it for you, he can do it for me, right? And it's just a journey. Now, there's a real interesting part to this journey because I now belong to the Sunset Rotary, and the Rotary helps Angels of Grace and has helped to organize a lot of, you know, the clothing and all the good stuff that we are able to share with the children. Now, a lot of these children only come with me and are only with me for 2 days because Child Protective Services, we work alongside them. The goal is always to put the children with the family. And so a lot of times these families are coming to us and they don't have anything for these kids. You know, the diapers and all. We got all of a sudden 5 grandchildren that you're going to get custody of, and we're able to make and share the blessing with them. And it works out really well because then they feel supported, and then hopefully I get to work with the parents. And they get it together, and then they come back, and you just see it. It's like a revolving door. We're hope, sharing hope, you know. So here I am at my Sunset Rotary meeting, and we had this wonderful police officer, chief, he was a deputy chief, Pat Farmer, here in Fresno. I don't know if you know who Pat is, but Pat is phenomenal. And he was one of our guest speakers talking about all the good things that they're doing in Fresno. And his wife was there along with other people because he's got a following. He does triathlons and all kinds of great things that he does, aside from being, you know, the police officer. So I was talking about our Luau of Love, which we have every year. We'll have this as our 9th annual, and it's going to be this year on September the 28th at Arte Americas at 6. So I'm sharing this, and his wife comes up to me after, and she said, you know, I really would like to help you with your luau. And I'm looking at her, and I'm going, I mean, I'm looking at this woman, and she's got the most beautiful blue pool eyes, and I'm looking at her, and I said, were you ever a nurse? She goes, yes. And I said, oh my God, were you ever a nurse at this hospital? She goes, yes. Do you remember this little Mexican lady that came in? And she goes, I prayed for her. And I go, oh my God, that's me. Can you imagine 20 some years later?
Oh, wow. Wow.
And she has a name. Her name is Jana Farmer. And we become very good friends. She's my angel. I just, you know, talk about miracles. And she was going through a hard time because she had gotten injured and she wasn't working. And so she was almost feeling like her life, you know, when you're not working, sometimes you feel like there's no value, right? And I told her, I said, well, you know, every time I pick up a baby, I tell him, you're beautiful. You know, God has a plan for your life. And this is a little bump in the road. We're going to get to the other side. I said, so you've touched thousands of children's lives. And she just looks at me. And as a matter of fact, we were on the phone yesterday. And, you know, we continue to go through things.
Well, what a beautiful story, and what an inspiration, you know, because I know breaking out, like you said, we think this is normal, we get stuck in it. Most people live out their whole lives like that. And, you know, being from a community where we've been so suppressed. You know, I come from the East Indian community, and I'm going to be honest, Marjorie Mason Center, we don't get a lot of women going through there, which I question. And I know that there are a lot of women in that same situation that will never break out. That will never break out.
You lose a lot.
Yes.
You know, when I finally divorced, I left my religion. But I didn't leave my faith. had faith.
But that is faith, Lisa. We talk about sin and whatnot. I think the greatest sin is to allow yourself to be in a situation where you are being abused.
Yeah.
That is what's a
Yeah.
bigger sin than that, right?
Well, and I think about scripture that says, I died so you could have this life and have it abundantly. God wants us to live an abundant life. He wants people to want what we have,
Yes.
which is hope and
Yes.
love. And even in the midst of dark times, and even in the midst of struggles, and even in the midst of hopelessness, we have our faith, and we
Yes.
have the ability to reach and connect with another human being that will help us on this journey.
Yes.
Like I said, Jana was my angel.
Wow.
And there's times that I've got to be her angel, because now, the journey changes.
Yes.
Circumstances changes.
Yep.
And we never know where we're going to be. Today you might be here strong. Tomorrow you might be going through cancer treatments, and you need another angel in your life. So we need each other.
Yes, we do.
And we need to
Yes,
stay
we do.
humble, and we need to not forget the pits that we've been pulled out of.
Yep.
So when we get the opportunity to reach back and pull somebody out of the pit,
Yes.
we're able to do it with love
Yes.
and with joy and with all the things that we need as humans
Yes.
to connect with each other in a very beautiful way. And I think what I felt in looking in her eyes was her soul.
Yeah.
And her soul was enough to keep my soul alive.
Yes.
And
yes.
so
yeah.
it's
We're
very
medicine
important.
for one
Yeah,
another.
we really
I think
are.
That's the best
We really
medicine.
are.
Wow, that is an amazing story, and I'm hoping that somebody out there is listening, because I know there are a lot of women I personally know that are in situations like that, but because of community and culture and a lot of guilt, and as females, you're kind of objectified. Now you are the man's property. You belong to the man's family, and it's almost as if you don't have a self.
Right.
But to take, to have the courage to break out of it, and especially in a huge situation like that.
And we live in a country where there's
Yes.
there's resources for us to be able to break out and not depend on, if that community that you're in is oppressing you and not allowing you to live the life that God died for you to live, then you definitely need to say, okay, this is not healthy for me. This is not a healthy community. I need to move out of that community and go into a place where I'm being lifted up. We were talking about either lift somebody up or bring them down. It's the journey that we on, and people do that. So qualify people in your life, and if they're not lifting you up, then definitely that they're not going to be a blessing. They're going to be a curse in your life.
A lot of times, so a lot of women that I know, they come in, they're new to the country, they don't know the language, and they're in very threatening situations, where they don't dare to get out, and my heart fills up, and to say, how do we reach out? Like I said, we do have places like the Marjorie Mason Center, but a lot of them are reluctant because they don't speak the language, and whoever brought them here, their husband or whoever they got married to, they do, and they are kept,
Oppressed.
oppressed, very oppressed. Yes.
The good news is that there's people like you that do speak the language, and they can connect with someone like you. In my culture, the Latino community, people have reached out to me that are in those situations, and I've been able to be a blessing to them. So, it's just, I think it's an assignment we have as humans to make the world better and make people's lives better, and hopefully, like I said, there's an opportunity for us to use what was meant to destroy us to make the world better.
Yes. Well, forge forward and keep doing
it's
the great work.
It is. Every day I get up and I'm like, okay, what's my assignment for today, and who am I supposed to be a blessing to? Because it's nothing that you've arrived at.
Yes.
Every day you have to be mindful that you're going to try to be the light.
Yes, you have to create that intention
You have to create
in the morning.
every single morning.
I know. We were thinking about what does it mean to have a servant's heart, and I think growing up, it's kind of you're confused on what a servant looks like. You think that you're kind of working for another human being, but a servant's heart is way more fulfilling. And it took me a long time into adulthood, to realize like, oh, this is the joy that comes out of serving others.
Right.
Okay, you serve others, you serve yourself. and leaders, having leaders that have a servant's heart. Not very many do you find out there, right?
It's important that we lead others to be leaders as well.
Yes.
Because and to be a great team. I know that I couldn't do the work that I do without the team that God's put together for me, and even you and I, coming together and hopefully creating this kind of energy for the world so that people can see how important it is. You don't have to look like each other. We don't have to be the same culture, but we're humans.
Yes.
And most importantly, that's the connection that we bring into the world, so we can encourage others to be in a good place in their life.
And a lot of times, like you said, we have this notion that, oh, it's just in my community that women are treated this way, and my religion is so strict. But you said you were arranged at 12 years old.
Right? And when I left the religion, I lost that whole community. And not just the community, but my family. So it was a huge loss. But it was also an opportunity for a new family, for new people in my life that are just a blessing to me. They're people that feed my soul. And so I'm okay with it.
Yes, because you crossed this invisible boundary that was kind of keeping you stuck, right?
And so
and
I am able to just live my life fully. And that's a beautiful way to live, just to be fully alive every day.
Yes, every day, waking up that way. Not that there aren't any ups and downs, but you know how to stay above them.
We ride the wave.
We ride
hold
the
on.
wave. We ride the wave. So let's talk about the Luau of Love, September 28th, he said.
That's correct, and it's going to be on a Saturday, our 9th annual Luau of Love, and it's a beautiful, beautiful venue at Arte Americas, which is in downtown Fresno, and we turn the Plaza de Paz into a beautiful Hawaiian paradise. It's just beautiful. The Polynesian Club of Fresno comes in, and they bring in all of their professional dancers, the fire dancers and everything, and they also cater. So it's a beautiful spread of Hawaiian, Polynesian food. We have very authentic. And then we do Dancing Under the Stars, so we have a DJ come in, and we're just able to have an incredible night of celebration, of joy, of love, and at the same time we're able to, bring in the funding that we need so we can continue to do the work that we do and provide the diapers and formula and be above and beyond what, when children come in, so that they can have what they need and feel like humans and know that they matter and that there is value in their life and that this is a little bump in the road and they're going to get to the other side. And, when we're going through those dark places, it can either be an opportunity for growth or an opportunity to stay stuck.
Yes.
And I always say that we have these littles on the inside of us. And a lot of us, when we have trauma in a very young age, if we don't grow those littles up, we stay stuck.
Yes.
And so our kids now will come in and they'll say, it was not a bad experience. I had a social worker that comes in. We bring in interns from Fresno State, Pacific College, that are getting their master's or their bachelor's in social work. So I always ask them, well, what is your motivation to go into social work? And I had an intern about 4 years ago coming in from Fresno State, and she said when she was 7 years old, her mother was a heroin addict, and she ended up in the foster care system, and she was, she was she smelled like urine, and she was very unkept because, full of head lice and everything. And the social worker came in and just loved on her and, cleaned her up and cleaned up all the head lice from her hair. And she's telling me this story, and she looks at me and she says, how long have you been doing this? And I told her, she goes, did you work for this other agency? And I said, yeah, I was that social worker.
How many?
So many,
circle.
And so she hugged me, and we cried, and my social workers were going, oh my God, what? And I go, she was my baby, and she hugged me. She goes, you still smell like flowers, because she remembered. And I remember I hold them all I ask him, is it okay if I hug you? And sometimes these kids haven't been hugged because they have head lice. And I'm always asking God, please don't let me get head lice. And I'll hug them. I've never had head lice, so I really think there's a shield, because you don't want them to feel like they're untouchable.
Yes. Because they're
lovable.
Right? They are lovable.
But anyway, so she's now a full-fledged social worker, and so you don't know how this whole journey is going to go. And we're such a small community that, one of our social workers will eventually end up with, that circle is going to come back.
Yes.
So, and the Luau of Love is one of the opportunities that we have. A lot of the kids that come back and they help with this, we're foster children that are now going to school, and they come back and volunteer. And Linda Kuma, who's a wonderful, she's the founder and the director. A lot of my foster children go to her classes. And so it's just people, paying it forward, if you will.
Right.
So the event is a beautiful event. The tickets are $65, and you get dinner, you get the opportunity for to come in and make a difference. We have silent auction. We're always looking for sponsors. If anybody out there would like to donate a live auction item or a silent auction item or be our guest. Now, children from 5 to 12, the fee is $12, so you can bring your family. And just have a wonderful experience. I recently got married in Kona, Hawaii, so I went to a beautiful luau, and I can honestly tell you, ours are better. Just saying, you don't have to go all the way to Hawaii.
I've seen videos and pictures, and honestly, it looks like you're in Hawaii.
It's so much fun, and we really try to create an atmosphere of love and joy, and you don't have to go all the way to Hawaii. Come to Fresno. Our tickets over there were like $125, $150. Here, $65. You don't have to buy the airfare. Just come on down, make a difference.
And you get to dress up too, right?
Yeah, we have the leis when you come in. So it doesn't matter what you wear, we're going to put a lei on you, and you're going to get into the spirit of Hawaii.
Yeah. Well, you can't go wrong with love. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes,
you can't go wrong
definitely.
with love, right? So what are some of the challenges, and how can the community support you further with your mission here?
Well, I think first of all, we have to reach into our hearts and say, okay, what can I do? Because everybody has a different gift and talent and treasure. We're all here to just pour into this life that we're living. So, financially, if people want to make a tax deduction donation, they can go to Angels of Grace, our website, Angels of Grace. And also they can contact us at 559-268-0000. We're always looking for good foster homes, people that are willing to open their homes and their hearts and bring children in and be a blessing in that way. And just pray for us, whatever your heart is telling you to do, because we're living in times right now. The amount of foster children in this area are like second to Los Angeles.
Wow.
So we're in the meth capital of the world here in Fresno and this area. So there's a lot of need for us to really step it forward when it comes to children.
We have to.
And we got babies that you get maggots in their diapers because they haven't been changed, or where they get the maggots. It can be really a horrific experience to do the work I do. But at the same time, you think about the blessing that comes from being able to respond.
Yes.
And not just react to, oh my God, how gross, but oh my God, I made a difference, And the head lice, we're always looking for the lice lotion and treatments and clothing, used clothing, if people want to donate their children's used clothing, or because we have a clothing closet. It looks like a little Walmart in there. The kids go in and we get to get clothing for them. And then a lot of them, like I say, only stay with us for a couple days, and at that point, we're able to bless the grandma who's got 5 grandchildren now, who's not going to have any benefit financially. So we're able to be a blessing, car seats, whatever it takes to just be a blessing, and hopefully one day they're going to turn around and they're going to say, it was a little bump in the road, we got to the other side, and now we get to pay it forward.
Well, look at this, right?
Well, every day's
all because you got separate. You had the courage, and somebody said, hey, you are somebody. Yes. And sometimes that's all it takes, right? Just a little reminder of you matter.
Yes. And now, I've been single 31 years.
I know.
And I'm happily married.
Yes,
Never thought that was going to happen.
That was
when you've been hurt, you're just like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to go down that road again. But it's beautiful to share my life with someone who's genuinely kind and considerate and loving, and it's just magical.
Yeah, it is magical.
It's a beautiful way to live.
I'm so happy for you.
Thank
I know
you.
we talked about that a little bit, and I was so excited when I bumped into you. Said you're going to go to Hawaii to get married.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I'm very blessed, and I'm just excited. I was sharing with you, I remember going in front of these judges and requesting restraining orders, and being so intimidated. And now my husband's a judge.
I
so
know.
I look at, I think, only God.
You have had, life has really provided you a lot of full circle moments.
And you know what?
Right?
And if I wasn't living it, I would think it was a lie. Like, this doesn't seem real. But I'm here to tell you, these magical miracles happen every day. You just have to be open to them.
You know, the first time that I remember, the first moment I remember with you was we were at City Hall, and you had come back from a trip from Europe. And and I overheard you say, you know what, I went here and it was almost like God was winking at me.
Oh, yeah.
And I know what you're talking about. It's like
beautiful.
there are so many magical moments. If you really tune into your life, you can really, and everybody faces adversity, okay? But faith really helps you to stay above it. And like you said, especially if you're in this country, okay? I'm speaking to all of the women out there, especially my East Indian, in our East Indian community. Okay, if you are in America, you have, there is no need to be staying in oppression. Okay, there is so much, like you said, there's a wealth of resources. Just reach out. And I know that we were talking about how intimidating it can be because a lot of the culture, they kind of I don't know, it can become dangerous, okay? I've heard that. It can become dangerous. But, if there's anybody out there, I'm going to tell you, if you're a Punjabi speaker, know of anybody that is being abused, reach out to me, okay? And I'd be more than happy to put you in touch with the right people. And there is no need to be afraid. We're not in this country, to be living out of fear. So... yeah, well, we are going to share your information. Thank you so much. You know that we absolutely love you, and I think that you're just a beacon of light in our community.
Thank you. You
so
know
keep
what?
It up.
And every day we have to choose to let the light shine.
Yes.
And so much of that comes from people like you, people that, share the light. We have to, iron sharpens iron.
Yes.
So people that are in that place of oppression, reach out to people that can sharpen your iron and make you feel like you matter, because you are enough, you matter. And it doesn't make, another human being shouldn't make you feel like you don't or you do. It's how you know who you are.
Yes.
And every day I get up and I look in the mirror and I just say, I was designed and created for a reason. Let me find what my reason was today. And I start to tell myself, God loves you, and you are enough. And
if you're breathing, you're deserving. If you're breathing, you've got a purpose here. You've got a life to live. And like you said, God doesn't put you here so you can suffer. I know a lot of people, they believe in being a martyr, and this is what, no, that isn't. Life wants life through you. That is why it created you.
And you're beautiful just the way you are. I used to always, want to be tall. I'm 4'11", and I thought, gosh, I wish I was tall. And now I think, God knew exactly what he's doing, because now with the babies that I get to rescue, I don't have to get on my knees. I can just look at them right in the eye. I don't have to, we're just like right there. And I think only God knew that I was going to be working with these kids. A lot of them are taller than I am. And it works out really well, because like I tell them, I'm really tall on the inside. You just don't see it on the outside. So embrace who you are. Be the best you that you can be. You are beautiful.
Yes.
And share that light with others so that you can continue to bring light into this world, especially right now when there's just so much darkness. We can choose to be the light.
Yes.
And as long as there's light, the darkness has to flee.
Right. They say it only takes a little piece of light to light up.
Exactly.
How many people can that light up?
Exactly.
Millions. One little
and guide them
thing, and
to
guide
that
them.
light of hope.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. I hope to have you come back on over and over again.
Thank you.
And God bless you.
And I hope to see all of your listeners at the Luau of Love, so we can share some more of this love light, and we can continue to make the world a better place.
I'll be there, dressed up in my Hawaiian.
Mahalo.
Mahalo.